Hey, welcome to the U School podcast. I can remember one of the most intimidating moments of my young life was when I was 21 years old. I was in a job interview, like for a real job, a career job. And the people asked me this horrible question. Tell us about yourself. And I knew that was coming. I've been told that that was something to be prepared for, but I think I just kind of blacked out. And for the next 5 to 10 minutes, told them about Little League baseball and high school and getting dumped by a girl and the classes I had taken. And they were very polite, but I could just feel the rush of intensity, I really felt embarrassed and a complete lack of clarity for what I was saying. I didn't really know how to answer the question. Tell us about yourself. I mean, what do you want to know? Biographical info? Do you want to know my resume? Do you want to know what kinds of books I like to read? My favorite movie? And when it comes to myself, who am I? So that question is an intimidating question for most people. And one thing I want to do as a parent and someone who works with young kids is to prepare them for that question that is guaranteed going to be asked of them and also makes a difference for how they answer. If you've never been around a young person who can clearly, succinctly, and in a compelling way tell you about who they are, I encourage you to get there. I encourage you to sit as an audience. I mean, it's jaw-dropping when a young person can get to clarity. So in this episode, what we want to get into is the first of many questions, what I would call critical questions that everyone must answer to build a meaningful life. It comes from, not to brag, this is a little book I wrote a couple years ago called Critical Foundations, available on Amazon. It's on our website as well. It's 30 questions that I believe every kid has to have an answer for themselves, not an answer that we can script, but an answer for themselves. And the first one that we're going to dig into starts with, tell me about yourself, but really it gets even further into that. What's your backstory? Many kids struggle to be able to share about where they come from and how it's impacted them because they're still in it. And yet, and there's countless cool Instagram quotes for this, the best way to see your future is to understand your past. The best way to predict where your life is headed, called inertia or trajectory, is to understand where your life has been. And I believe that parents have an important role, a critical role in helping their kids understand where they come from. So in the midst of all that, as your kid goes through adolescence, goes through middle school, high school, and college, many experts have said, and you've probably heard me quote it as well, the primary task of these years for them is to figure out who they are, to figure out who they're not. And this question will help build the foundation for them to understand their identity. Adolescence is a time of self-discovery, and it's a time to explore beliefs and values and priorities and interests and try to distinguish yourself from other people. But one thing that's for sure true is that your past is a fixed point. What you've been through, the circumstances, the events, the people that have shaped you, and we're going to get into that in this episode for how to help a young person understand that, is so helpful to give them a foundation of who they are. And the temptations for everybody growing up are to form an identity. It's to form your life based on someone else's perspective, based on what you project and predict will get you a sense of validation, a sense of worth, a sense of internal peace. It's a game that we're all trying to play. And if you can kind of guess the right, combination on the locks, then maybe I can unlock what I'm looking for. And everyone's looking for slightly different things. Maybe you're looking to feel more powerful. Maybe you're looking to feel more in control. Maybe you're looking to impress other people and have a really high reputation. Maybe you're looking for the safety and security that comes from having a lot of things and being in charge of your life. We're all kind of, our own little makeup, our own little concoction of what we're looking for. But what we can offer them is a grounded sense of where they come from. There's also other benefits of helping your kids understand their past, understand their backstory. If you can help them do this, they can articulate who they are and where they come from in a way that will make them a bunch of things more relatable, more likable, and certainly more trustworthy. If I know who you are and where you come from, I know what to do with you. I know where you come from. You're like a defined person. If you don't have much to say, there's not much content to pull from. I think you're going to be having this experience where people just don't quite understand the three dimensions of who you are. Helping your kids understand their past, understand their life through the lens of stories, episodes, will also equip them to be more potent, more effective storytellers. And those people do better in life. Storytellers win in life. They're more likable to be around. They're more entertaining, and also they're more trustworthy. Understanding where you come from isn't just for the social benefit of being able to answer questions in an interview. It isn't just to help you have direction and see where your life is headed. But research has proven that people who understand their past and where they come from have a greater resilience to handle the next challenge in life, because they're able to look back and think of a before and an after. They're able to recall circumstances that were challenging, events that shook them, roadblocks, setbacks, failures, rejection, times they failed. They're able to recall those at an easier sort of inventory of those moments, because we've all had them. And so when they're confronting the next big challenge, the next big circumstance, the next big roadblock, something's at risk to fail, they're going to be able to recall and pull from those moments and experiences from the past in kind of an easier way. And so they're going to have greater capacity to handle the complexity of risk. They're going to have a greater resilience when life doesn't go their way, because they can actually remember, yeah, I've been through this before, something just like this. I've been through this. And I could think of 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times where I made it through. It was awful at the moment, but I made it through. Additionally, if you need more, I'm going to share with you a couple more. People who can reflect and recall their past experiences will have a increased, heightened sense of awareness of how those experiences integrate together, which is the foundation of well-being. People who can look at their past experiences and think, this happened and that happened and this person was involved and that didn't happen, and they reflect on those things. They kind of pick them up and look at them and chew on them and look at them in different ways and talk about them. They'll actually start seeing dots connect in their life. Actually, their brains will become more efficient. They will be able to see patterns, and it'll turn into a sense of strength for them. All that turns into increased, you might use the word agency for a kid. Clear-headed, strong, independent, autonomous, confident, and clear. That's what we want. That's my pitch for why you can be intentional to help your kid answer this critical question of where do you come from? What's your backstory? So let me get into some specific strategies, some specific ways that you can help your kid cultivate a sense of clarity around their backstory. The first one would be to ask open-ended questions, to think about your interactions with them also through the lens of story. It starts with a very, very simple question, a very open-ended question. What happened? What happened today? What happened when you were spending time with them? What happened? It's a very kind of, let's just get the contents out. Let's just get the facts and the figures. I want to know where you were at and who you were with. There's a story there that I want to uncover. I want to understand. And the experience of asking a question like that, what happened? From a kid's perspective, there are going to be moments where they feel like you're being intrusive, especially if you're prone to lectures, especially if you're prone to butting in, especially if you're prone to like having strong emotional reactions. But if you're neutral about it, because you understand life is a series of stories, and you ask what happened, their experience of you asking that is going to feel like their life and the contents of their life matters. That they matter. They have value and they have worth. That's a really good thing. What happened? That's the first one. Second would be for you to share and tell stories from your past. And there's a number of benefits of that. I think it's a way to break the ice. It's a way for them to get to know you. It's a way for them to understand who you are. It oftentimes, if you tell personal stories from your past, It gives them the opportunity to learn from your life. And especially if you're sharing stories that are real and raw and don't include a lecture at the end. But mostly you're going to give them the chance to reflect on their past experiences. It's going to be like a mirror, not an exact mirror, not a replica mirror, but a mirror in that it'll help them see their life and their past experiences in a similar way, as interesting, as valuable, as content rich. So as you're doing that, you might even help them recall stories from their past, especially if they're in moments and situations now that feel tenuous to them, that feel like it's giving them some anxiety or stress. For example, you might have a kid that's like really worried about a big project coming up. It's a group project and they're gonna have to do a big presentation, and it's just not something. They're just like, you can tell they're frustrated about it and they're complaining about it and they're putting it off, and you know it matters to them. Can you think of a time when they stepped into a difficult moment? A difficult moment. Maybe there's a conflict that they have with a friend. Maybe there was a time when they were on a team where they had to step up and be a leader, to actually help them remember and recall those sorts of stories, where you highlight the before, the during, and then the after. And you don't have to be like Danny Tanner in Full House and have the music cue and give them this really inspirational speech about who they are. But I was thinking about you the other day, and I remember the time when there was a really difficult person on your team or your friend group, and it was bothering you for a long time. Remember that? You would come home and you would say, "Gosh," but then you said something. I wasn't there, but I remember you came home and you said, I addressed them, I confronted them, and then things changed. There was, the before and the after. And you don't even have to then help them connect the dots. You just share with them story after story of who they are, of how they stepped into conflict, how they stepped into difficult situations, and they rose to the occasion. And then finally, your opportunity to help them think about their past and think through the lens of stories and episodes, you can actually start to pull that into the present moment by asking them those sorts of questions. So if this was an episode that you're in right now, what would it be? What would you call it? And you're giving them the opportunity to think with a little distance at their current situation, because you're cultivating this sense of distance and reflection and intentional perspective taking, which is higher order. It's really high functioning brain stuff that you're teaching them, giving them the scaffolding to do and get to, so that at some point they could actually look at their present moment through the lens of awareness, the lens of maturity, distance from their own emotional reaction, and recognize that this is going to be an interesting story at some point too. And I'm right in the middle of it. So maybe your kid struggles to articulate who they are, and you want to give them the opportunity to talk about who they are so they can build stronger friendships. Perhaps you're motivated to help them be successful in college and career, and you understand that communicating about themselves is going to be critical to that. Maybe you want them to get married someday, and you want them to be attractive, and you want them to have someone that's attracted to them because they are strong in who they are and they're compelling, and as they talk about their lives. Maybe you particularly care about helping your kid have greater sense of well-being, a greater sense of agency, greater sense of clarity. Maybe you anticipate there's going to be some problems coming up in their life, some stressful situations, and so you want to bolster and boost their sense of resilience. All of those are fantastic reasons for you to be intentional, to guide them, to understand their backstory. Did I convince you yet? So this was the first question out of 30 that we're going to dig into. There's plenty of resources, including this book, on our website. Love for you to go and take a look at it and be very intentional. There's a checklist on our website. If you sign up, if you're not signed up yet, sign up for our Start newsletter. Start being more intentional with your kids. Weekly tips that we send out to parents for free. When you sign up for that, you get all 30 questions in a kind of a checklist format. But I think what we're trying to do is reimagine what success looks like for this whole project of parenting and growing up into adulthood. And this is the first of many questions that are critical to helping your kid have all that they need to build a meaningful and flourishing life. So subscribe to the YouTube channels, subscribe to the podcast if you want more of this. And we love for you to give a review if you're so inclined. We'll be back next week with another episode, another question that's critical for your kids to have answers to as they go through life.